Welcome to today's podcast. Hope you guys are having a great, Wednesday. We are 2 days out, officially moving to our penthouse. Super excited. I have not been able to sleep. I've been dreaming about it. I can't wait to take you guys on that journey. Yesterday, we actually got back on YouTube as well in terms of recording, just to brush off a little bit of rust. I'm really excited. There's a lot of new content coming. But getting into this today, we are talking about why you still feel like a disappointment. You know, what do you do when the people who raised you no longer understand you? Like your parents or your family, maybe your friends. My name is Andrew Chau. Welcome to Rising with the Tide, an Achieve Championship podcast. In 2014, I lost my job, fell into addiction, and dropped out of my engineering degree. The same one I only did to make my parents happy. 10 years later, I now run a 7-figure coaching business for high-performing Asian men. So the journey here wasn't about business, but it was really about a sense of finding a sense of belonging. So if you're a high achiever, but you still feel like you're not enough, you're still carrying this chip on your shoulder, this episode is for you. And I've broken this up into many parts. Part one is what most people don't really understand or don't really talk about, especially in Asian culture, which is the program pressure of being Asian. We were raised to believe that success, that to do anything, to be somewhat successful, to receive any kind of recognition, you had to be like a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, or you'd be a disgrace. I was considered a disgrace to my family. There was a point in time where my parents were embarrassed to even tell our family and friends what I did. But during that time, to be fair, I didn't have a job. I was smoking weed all day, playing games, gambling. I was going home late every single day, and I was a child. I didn't take responsibility for my actions, but I was trying to figure out my life. And I'm going to share a little bit about that in a moment. But also as a result of growing up in an Asian culture, there is no affection. We don't talk about our emotions. We don't talk about our mental health. And especially for Asian men, not having that affection, we don't have that emotional father figure. Our dads are always stone cold, just do the thing. And that eventually we program ourselves that we have to perform to receive any kind of love or recognition or validation. And the thing is, our parents never say that, I'm proud of you. They always ask, why not 100%? You know what's funny? My brother, he scored really high on his ATAR. Back then it was called, Enter score. He got like 96. And he got scolded by my dad for like 3 days straight. I remember I was in the other room and he was screaming at my brother, like, why didn't you just push a little bit harder? Because my brother wanted to get into medicine. And so for him to get 96, would have to do biomed for 2 or 3 years, then get into medicine. So instead of recognizing the efforts of the 96% of people that he was smarter than, he was criticized for not being in that top 4%. This plants a seed that you're only good enough when you achieve, which means that you don't have the ability to recognize all the small little wins day in, day out that compound to the bigger things. But you know what? Like, our parents aren't meant to know any better. They grew up from a different generation. And someone like myself that's actually on the journey to success. I mean, some of you might think that we already made it. I think we're just cooking. We're just getting started. But for us to run a 7-figure business now, what I can tell you is it's actually made up of the small little things that no one actually talks about. And what is that? It's the small habits every single day. Showing up when you don't want to. Eating right. Going to the gym. Following through the actions that you committed yourself to. Those are the small little decisions. Small little wins. But you don't just get to change your life overnight and step into the version of who you want to be in the next moment. It takes time. It takes progression. And being able to recognize those small little efforts is key, because if all you're focusing on is the negatives, then you're never going to feel like you're good enough. And what makes this even worse is that Asian parents would compare their offspring to other parents at gatherings, even to the kid's face. You know, my dad used to compare me to all my family, friends, and cousins all the time. He would compare me to I have a best friend that I've known since kindergarten. So what's that? 28, 29 years I've known this person. And even from kindergarten, my dad would put me against him and continue to compare me to him. And what does this do? It creates a feeling of isolation. It puts a chip on your shoulder, and it creates a competitive nature within you to always want to compete against others rather than bond and focus on camaraderie and building relationships. I was actually not even allowed to have friends. My dad in high school would disconnect my internet because he didn't want me to socialize. And this creates a fragile identity tied to external success, which leads to feelings of low self-worth. Part 2 is when you're programmed to live someone else's life, there's a cost that's involved. For me, I was good at maths and physics, but it wasn't something I wanted to do forever. I actually wanted to do graphics design or visual communication design. In year 12, I was actually very good at it. I was actually a freelance graphics designer. However, I didn't think that was sustainable. My parents wanted me to do engineering, so I chose engineering for them, which resulted me in not being happy with my choices in my life. And I struggled to show up to school because it wasn't something that I was interested in. Having undiagnosed ADHD, I didn't know why. It just didn't make sense. I was good at it, but why wasn't I able to focus? Why wasn't I able to show up every single day? Why did I keep falling asleep in every single lecture? That led me to eventually dropping out because I felt so incongruent with the person I wanted to be. I just felt like this wasn't a way for me to live life. And then I fell into drugs, alcohol. And then there was a moment that changed everything when I got caught drink driving. I don't blame anyone for it. It was still my responsibility, but the conditions around me instigated those behaviors, especially when I didn't even know who I was. I was trying to figure myself out. I lived 30 years being the man that my dad wanted me to be, only for me to be on the complete polar opposite of everything I had envisioned for myself. And that moment in 2017, I was lying. It was 2017. I was lying on my brother's couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering, what have I done? How did I get to this point? How did 15 years of tuition get me here? How did I, out of all the potential I had, all the dreams and goals, aspirations that I dared to dream, how did I end up in this position? And I realized if I don't rebuild now, I'm never going to be the man I needed growing up. I'm not going to be able to have kids. Even if I were to have kids, how do I get my kids through this if I can't even get through this myself? I always knew that I was going to have kids. I didn't plan to have kids anytime soon in my early 20s, but I just knew that I was destined to have kids. I don't want to live the rest of my life alone. You see, most people don't think about that. And I ask them all the time. They're like, I haven't thought about that yet. So what are your binary? What are your plans? You're either going to live the rest of your life alone or you're going to have offspring one day. What are you going to choose? And so because they don't think about it, that moment comes and they're not ready. But that I thought. And at that moment in time was when things started to change. I had to set a goal to become the best father I know that I could be. Before my kids even existed, I just know that everything I do today is going to forge the dad I'm one day going to be. The values and the lessons I'm going to learn, who I am and my being. I can have all the best values and all the best lessons, but if I don't believe it, I don't act out on it myself, how can I ever empower them to do the same? And the big identity shift in the moment, the realization moment for me was no longer chasing approval, but now chasing alignment. That decision forged my why. That became my North Star, my compass that has led me to where I am today. On my vision board, hanging out, we put together, we have, it's actually just a baby's clothes, baby's onesie. You know, we always plan to have kids. So everything we do now, the reason why we work so hard now is to buy us the freedom and the option and the choice to have our time back in the future, to have generational wealth, to be able to provide the opportunities, the values and the lessons, and our being of success for our future kids. And here's the thing. Even when you succeed, even when I succeeded, I still disappointed them. And so I eventually started rebuilding my career. I started in retail. I had no qualification because I dropped out, no experience. So I started working at Samsung at a shopping mall. Within 6 months, I eventually went to the bank. After 11 months or 6 months at the bank, I was doing the coaching. I facilitated the training. I redid the training pack. And 11 months, I was headhunted for another job, fintech company in client service. After 2.5 years, I became a project manager, which is a 6-figure salary. Now, at that point, my dad was proud. He was proud that I went from being a complete degenerate and a disgrace to the family to having a decent paying job. But I just realized, like, if I could do that in 3.5 years, imagine what I can do working for myself. And so I had a vision. I had a vision of something greater. So I quit my job. I left my job to start my business. And can you imagine the disappointment in my parents' eyes after being able to rebuild my life to give everything up? But we started to do really well. I made like $40,000 in the first 4 months. 3 months. And I remember telling my parents these numbers. And instead of being proud, they looked at me like I was a criminal. In their mind, they're like, how can someone like this, who we saw as a drug addict, be able to generate this amount of money legitimately? That is impossible. Because in their mind, they have associated hours and days and weeks and years of hard labor to amount to those amount of dollars. And I was able to generate it in a matter of months just starting out. And just being around that environment, like Hang and I, what my parents don't realize is we lived at home for them. My mom's always wanted a daughter. My parents didn't even know they liked dogs until we brought Crunchy home. We were a happy family. I even tried to retire them, but then they snuck back to work. And the reason why we were at home is I can't prove to them what success is. I couldn't even retire them, but at least if they can see me wake up early every day, work towards my dreams, work towards my goals, maybe that might be enough for them to understand we're on the right path. But it still wasn't enough for them. Because 2.5 years later, we had an argument that tore a rift in our family. It was too hard for me to be around people who kept reminding me of who I once was, rather than seeing me for who I want to be. So I had to make a decision. This is a hard decision that most people don't make, and they go through this emotional debt. I had to choose between my current family and my future family. And nothing is more important than my future family. I have paid off my debt. I've paid my dues. I've lived the last 30 years living the life that they wanted. Now it's my time to live the life that I want. And the thing with Asian parents, they will always guilt trip you. They will gaslight you. They'll say that they made all these sacrifices for you and you owe your entire life and being to them. I didn't ask to be born. But I do have a choice that everything I do is for my future family. So I had to choose. I have to put that chapter behind me. There will be a day where we'll make amends. Today is not that day. Today is the day that I work towards my future. And the main takeaway here is our parents want the best for us, but they don't always know what that is. And it's your responsibility to figure that out for yourself because it's your life. One day they will not be around and you will pay the cost of their decisions if you do not make your own decisions. And so that ventured on to the next chapter, which is the internal war of scarcity, shame, and silence. These are the values that have been imprinted into our minds and programmed into us since we were young. Scarcity, money is hard to come by. Shame, if you don't follow through with our family traditions, you're ashamed. And silence, that you don't get the recognition or the validation, the care that you need. Generational trauma disguised as tradition. And what happens? Most men never unlearn it. They just suppress it. And because of this, it conditions them to be these cold, uncaring robots that are just living day by day, living someone else's life. And so you live this life that your parents said it's going to make you happy. When you're a doctor, you have money, you're going to be happy. Then you do that and you only to realize that you're more stressed than ever. Then you have a family, then you have a mortgage, then you don't even have time for yourself. Only to live the rest of your life on autopilot like an NPC. And that is the definition of an NPC. You are being programmed. You're a non-player character. You don't even play the game. Someone's programmed in your destiny and you're just following through. You don't even question it. And because of this, they never feel truly seen, safe, or even celebrated for their accomplishments and how great they could be. So how do we fix this? What's the cure? Is a sense of belonging. As humans, we have this innate desire to want to fit into a tribe. We want to belong. We want to feel seen. And what I've noticed over the last few years, and the reason why I resonate so much with these Asian guys, is they all felt the same way. Slightly different, but same story. All these men crave behind this tough outer shell. They're just a soft sponge, a soft pillow on the inside. It doesn't make them weak. The emotions actually make you strong. But denying your own nature is what makes you weak, because you're fighting your own internal self. If you wanted to win a war, you would want your opposition to fight themselves. And that's what most men are doing right now, most Asian men. And really what they crave is a sense of belonging, a sense of significance, to be seen, to be heard for who they are, to be surrounded by other men who actually get it, who don't make them shrink when they speak their vision, who challenge you without judging you, who celebrate your wins like they're their own. That's why we built the Rising Tide, because we didn't do this alone. This is a space for high-performing Asian men to break the generational curse together. And when you surround yourself with others who are succeeding, it makes you feel some kind of way. It's a sink or swim. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but it makes you rise. Like when you go to the gym and your gym bro is suddenly benching 10 kilos more than you. And now it just lights a fire under your ass to actually get your shit together to level up, because you don't want to let them down. You don't want to be the anchor. And so you can turn your conditioning into the positive. But first you need to understand the source of that conditioning, the value and the belief. And now you get to choose. You've now crossed the threshold of self-awareness. You get to choose, do you want that value and belief to define and govern all your actions moving forward, or are you ready to take control? You're not broken for wanting more. You're just misaligned with the people who were raised from a different world. There's a difference between being a good son and becoming a great man. So stop chasing their version of success. Start building the life that feels like yours. If you're tired of being alone in the process, find your tide. Because when the water rises, we all rise. That is it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We're going to be doing some admin work over the next couple of days and starting to pack. I feel very anxious. There's so many things that we need to get done before we can move. And the biggest thing for me is this table. I have to dismantle this whole desk and table, every single cable that spent me hours cable managing and tucking away to set up in the new office. And I'm very conflicted about how I would want to set up the office. Let me know. Should I have the desk facing the window? Should I have it perpendicular to the window? I'm conscious because I want to be able to set up a really good environment when I can do these lives. And what would you like to see in the background? Would you like to see the penthouse and the view? Would you like to see just the view? I'm curious. I know it seems like such a first world problem, but that is my main focus when it comes to choosing a place, because I sit here every single day. I need to really enjoy this environment. An environment is not just your surroundings, but it's also the people around you as well. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And that's about it. I'm really excited. I feel really, really good coming back on this podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying it. Let's go through some comments here. Henry, welcome. Hey, Andrew. I'm an appointment setter. Are you looking for any setters at the moment? Hey, Henry. I run an appointment setter agency. So to answer your question, I think we're good. But thank you for checking in. Andrew, I sent you a message. Can you check your DMs after, please? Henry, I'm very curious. How often does that work for you? Jerry, welcome. I appreciate you and your journey, for being a part of our journey from the start. And I hope I've made you proud from the moment that you joined and seeing where we've come. I'm very proud of you, Jerry. You know, being able to quit your job, live the life that you want, and you're on this new chapter of your life of building your personal brand, creating consistent content, and really putting yourself out there. That is incredibly challenging. To spend the time that you did in a foreign country, that is also very challenging. I admire you. So awesome work, Jerry. Hang, as always, thank you for tuning in. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Oppa Sutao. That was awesome, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining in. And Liam, face the window, good energy. I like it. That's what I'm thinking as well. Liam, you and I were on the same wavelength. That is it for today, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.